Hey Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 379.
Yeah.
Good week, Who fans. Hope you've had a cracking one and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related. You always wait too long, mate.
I know.
Every time.
Trying to catch you out. That's
yes.
why. Trying to get you.
Indeedy. Welcome everybody to episode 379. It's another quiet week for news in the world of Doctor Who. We don't have anything kicking off. That sounds not in a bad way. We don't have any big news to go through. Russell's been fairly quiet for the last couple of weeks. I think because we had that big batch of news that came all at once, it felt like. It's now kind of simmered down a little bit, and then it'll probably ramp up again at some point soon. There'll be another bit of news that drops, a casting announcement or something. And we'll be off to the races again. But fairly quiet this week. And one of us has had a very cool Doctor Who related thing going on. One of us has been very quiet. I'll let you guess which one is that. So before we get on to that, we are going to mention just very quickly, some pics that were dropped of Mr. Tennant in his new suit for Comic Relief. We'll talk about those in a second. And then we're on to our review of the Fourth Doctor story, Underworld.
Underworld,
indeedy.
The quest
yes.
is the quest.
This is the way. Indeedy. Before we get on to all that stuff, what did you get up to at the weekend? You did something, so just get me out of the way. I've had a really busy week with work and other stuff, so I haven't had a chance to do anything Doctor Who related, but I know you have, bud. What have you been up to?
Yeah. I've been to the old one of those BFI events, and it was a cracker this time, mate. It was a really top day. I mean, they always are good, but I don't know, this one, just the atmosphere was so fun. So I went to the BFI, British Film Institute, for those of you who don't know, which is on the South Bank in London. It's basically, it's got about, how many cinema screens they got in there? It's like a luxurious, very comfy cinema.
Yeah,
they have about 4 or 5 screens, I think. And we watched The Sea Devils on the big screen, ready for when the box set of season 9 comes out later this month. Which was great in itself. They always show you some little snippets of some of the new extras that we're going to get. So we got to see a little bit of the behind the sofas and Katie riding a bike and stuff. So it was a really great event. But there was also interviews and stuff. It was quite a long day as well. They actually gave us a toilet break in the middle because it was quite a long day, which is great. Yeah. Which is great because you do feel like you get value for money. I mean, we had, all of that, 6 episodes of the Sea Devils, extras. We had people on stage talking, Katie Manning, Pete McTeague, Hugh Futcher. Careful how you say that. He, especially after a few drinks, he was there. He had a very minor part in the Sea Devils. So I wasn't sure, I didn't even know who he was, if I'm all honest. But actually, he was one of those guests that you think, well, I don't know him, and you might sort of not be too bothered about, but it actually turned out to be quite an interesting, fun guy on stage. He was talking about, he was in some of the Carry On films as well, so although he was only minor in the Sea Devils, he did lots of other stuff. But what was interesting was I didn't know he was a contender for the 7th Doctor. So as soon as he said that, my kind of ears pricked up, and I thought, that's interesting. So he talked about that, doing the audition. He had a scarf on as well, like a long scarf, sort of multicoloured, not 4th Doctor, but ish. So he was into the part, if you like, and he was quite entertaining. Katie was just amazing, as you can imagine. She is just such a big ball of fun on and off stage. She did a signing afterwards, Katie Manning, so that was great. Pete McTeague was there, the guy who writes all the trailers that we get for the Blu-rays, like the one of Ace looking out the window, and the most recent one with Katie Manning and he had the small sea devil baby head with him, which was pretty cool. We had a guy playing piano in the middle of this interval as well, which was very... we haven't had that before. So there was a guy randomly playing the music from City of Death. He played that, which is cool. And then he went on to try and attempt to play some of the music from the Sea Devils by Malcolm Hulke, which, as you can imagine, anyone who's ever watched Sea Devils, the music is a little bit bizarre, to say the least. It's very experimental, isn't it? And to hear that sort of morphed, trying to play that on piano was interesting. I don't know how he managed to transcribe it. I spoke to him afterwards. I was like, how did you even work out the notes? Because it's all like electronic blips and, But so that was cool. It was just a really fun day, mate. And the two guys who compare it, is that the right word? Dick Fiddy and Richard, what's his name? What's the other guy's name? Anyway, those two guys... They are always, they always kick off the event and introduce it, and they normally do a little competition, handing out some stuff. They were on such great form on Saturday. Like the humour and banter between them and the people on stage just created such a great atmosphere. It was a great day. And then obviously drinks afterwards, and there was loads of people in the bar. A lot of like celebrities. There was loads of Big Finish people there. Frank Skinner was there. Obviously Katie Manning and everyone. It was just such a great atmosphere on Saturday. Probably one of the most enjoyable BFI events I've been to, and they're always good, but this one, I don't know, it just really stood out as being a great day. I absolutely loved it. I just sort of feel like they are becoming so hard to get tickets for now, and I understand why, because they are so popular, but I dread the day that I don't get a ticket. And I, shout out to our writer Maria, because I really did, she was really missed. You were really missed, Maria. I would have loved you to have been there. And I do feel bad actually saying how great it was, because I know you do listen to the shows as well as write for us. So you were missed. And I just know that's going to happen to me one day. And I will probably just go for the drinks and the bants afterwards, because it is, they are just great fun.
They are, dude. And what was the Sea Devils like on the big screen? And has it had much remastering done and stuff, or was it as you expected?
It excuse me, it looked good, but I mean it did. There's only so much they can do, I think. I mean, some of the shots on the sea and the boats and that, they do look really grainy, and they still look really grainy. I think it's as good as it can be, and it certainly does look good. But I think especially when you're seeing it on a big screen, you can really pick out, the quality of the film, which sadly for this story is not the best, but it's certainly not the worst either. It looked good, but yes, you could definitely see, the imperfections of it. To be honest, as I said, there's only so much they can do, I think.
I read you. Okay.
There was a bit of music that nearly tore my ears off, mate. The music's quite piercing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they remastered that as well as the picture. There was a high-pitched note that seemed to go on for like a good 30 seconds. And especially as I've, excuse me, just had my ears done, so I can hear really well at the minute. It really went through me, and I could feel everyone's backs go up thinking, will this note please end? It was it was really, really high pitched. Mm-hmm. So yes, it sounded clear. The sound was excellent. Mark Ayres, I suppose, has done that, but it sounded good and it looked good. But some of the sea shots, mate, they do look ropey, don't they? They just look really grainy, know?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're saying as well. There was one occasion, this isn't Doctor Who related, there was one occasion where I walked out of a cinema because of the audio mix.
Really?
It was the audio mix. It was years ago. I think about 15 years ago, something like that. I went to see, they were doing this horror weekend in the town I used to live in, and it was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, we ended up seeing about 3 or 4 horror films over this weekend. I don't know what it was about that particular film, whether they just cranked the volume up too much or the mix was... But it literally went straight... I don't know if anyone's seen that film, but there's this high-pitched kind of squeal that goes on for what feels like hours throughout the whole film. And it got so bad that I was like, guys, I can't do this. I've got to get out of here. Because it was... in some films when people have got like some sort of device on their head that just... Oh, actually, in this episode when he's in the torture thing with those headphones on, and that's what it felt like in the cinema. So I was like, no, I've got to get out. So I know what you mean, bud. Sometimes in the cinema, certain things that you didn't bother you in terms of audio when you've watched it at home, just go straight through your bloody brain. I know what you mean.
It definitely did. It definitely did. Just to wrap up as well, this little thing. A personal highlight for me was in the bar afterwards. I heard somebody shouting, "Oi, Geek's handbag, Geek's handbag!" I was turned around, and it was Al Dewar, who's the creative director of Character Options, who make all the Doctor Who figures. You know, they do all the B&M figures and everything. They, you know, ever since Doctor Who came back in 2005, the glory days of like, was it Toys R Us? You know, those pictures you see of all the figures that we used to get and stuff. So Character Options. And I had such a lovely chat with Al, and we talked about the range and what's going on with it, and just a really nice guy. And it was just lovely to be able to talk to him about, because I was worried. I said, I hope you don't mind me saying, but I find finding the B&M sets quite frustrating because sometimes they're very hard to get, and it was just nice that he shares our frustrations, and they're trying to do things about it and stuff. So that was a particular highlight for me. And I think we've got some, for those of us that collect the figures. I know you're not a figure collector, but there are people like myself that do love them, and I think talking to Al just confirmed we have got some quite exciting times ahead, I think, and especially now Russell's back, it seems like they're very much working together. Good. That was it. That was nice as well. That was a lovely little bonus for the day to actually chat to him as someone who loves collecting the figures. A lovely guy, really, really nice guy.
That sounds awesome, dude. Very cool.
It was a really good moment for me. I loved it.
Yes, and hopefully they can sort out their relationship with distribution and stuff with B&M, because as we all know, that's always a fun time.
It sounds like they're tackling it. It definitely sounds like they're trying to tackle the distribution issues. It's all good. So another great event, mate, and I've got another one this weekend. I tell you, the weeks are flying by at the minute. So I've got I'm going to the Riverside Studios to a Doctor Who event this weekend. And as listeners of the last podcast will know, we're going to be watching episode 6 of The Web Planet, which
Jesus Christ.
I'm going to have a few ciders before I go into that, I think. I don't know if I'm going to be able to take that again. It's too recent, the memories are too sore to go back and watch that so quickly after we reviewed it, I think. But there is other stuff. They are showing other episodes, thank goodness, but... I get the feeling that's going to be the toilet break moment for me when that comes on, I think.
Yes. Dear listener, if you haven't checked out our review yet of The Web Planet, go give that a listen. That'll be a good laugh. Before we get on to our review this week, though, anyway, it sounds like a cool event, dude. And I know Maria is going to this one at Riverside, so she'll be able to do a...
oh, no, I don't think she is.
Oh, she's not at this one.
She was, I think. Right. No, because I texted her and said, well, at least I'll see you next weekend. And I've got the feeling she double booked or something. I think she's off to see that play with Jenna Coleman.
Maria.
I think, don't quote me on it, but I'm sure she said, oh, no, I can't go now. Is it the Jenna Coleman play? I can't remember. I think she's double booked, mate. I think she's double booked herself.
For God's sake, Maria.
Bloody
hell.
And as I said, it's no good relying on me to do the write-ups because I can't remember them the morning after. So
Nope.
No.
I need to give a shout out to Frazzled, to Maria's classic watch through as well. Yes. So as I mentioned last week, over on the Discord, she has started to put her notes down on her rewatch from the she's going through the classic years, and she's now on to season 2, production code J, which is Planet of the Giants. And she's given some really cool little write-ups over on there. So I'll give you the deets on how you can get onto Discord in a moment. But Maria, if you didn't... I just feel gutted for her because she missed this one as well, just gone.
I know. I could be wrong, but I'm sure she said when I texted her she couldn't make it.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get on to our review, did you see the pics, dude, of Mr. Tennant in his brand new 14th Doctor suit with Mr. Lenny Henry? This was for, I assume, that they have filmed some stuff for the upcoming Comic Relief Red Nose Day here in the UK, which is next week, actually, Friday the 17th of March. So next Friday, cool. You should set your calendars and your watches for that, because there'll be a little Doctor Who segment throughout the proceedings for that. But yeah, there was a bunch of pictures. They'd be quite generous, actually. I think there's about 8-9 pictures of him doing his thing. Some really good poses as well. There's alongside him with Lenny Henry, he's got the classic regeneration pose, where he's glancing down at his hand and
looking at his hands, is it?
Yeah, and he's looking at watch and stuff. Yeah. So what do you think to the costume now? You've seen it in a bit more detail and close up. It's definitely they've definitely gone for it's the same but different vibe, because it feels very much like a classic Tennant Doctor's outfit, but it's just been refined and changed up a little bit. So I really like the blue coat. I didn't realise it was I thought it was a smoother material, but it's really fluffy and it's a really nice thick wool blend. It looks really nice, that coat. That's going to be a cosplayer's dream.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I really like it. I love the outfit, mate, and that's a perfect description. It feels like a really nice variant on something the 10th Doctor, although he is, of course, the 14th, isn't he? But it is a great variation on that costume, I think. I really like it. Yeah, I love the coat, the waistcoat. I like those funny little glasses he's wearing, not in any of those pictures, but, in the trailer and stuff. I think it suits Tennant down to the ground. Even the little cut-off tie thing he's wearing looks really cool, I think.
It does, doesn't it?
I love it. Do you think we're going to get like an actual segment? Do you think we're going to get like an exclusive little... Is this going to be like the old days when we get like a little Children in Need, Red Nose Day clip? Or what do you reckon we're going to get?
I think we will.
Yeah,
I think we will, mate.
as well.
Yeah, I think I have to be careful saying this, because we've had a few comments here and there. Nothing too serious, but we've had a few comments here and there saying, why do we love the RTD era and RTD so much? We get some comments saying he's not perfect. He's written some clangers and things like that. We're fully aware of that. I
was going to say, we acknowledge that.
Yeah, of course. We're not blind to that, of course. But I'm about to say, I think because Russell's back, it feels like some of the things that were in place before that worked really well, like the Christmas special, doing Red Nose Day segments, things like that. I think they are now coming back a little bit, because I think fans miss that, and it was, and I think Russell is not in a sort of passive aggressive way, but kind of whether you view things were broken or not, but he's kind of fixing a few little things that have happened with Who over the last few years. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I assume that David Tennant has been doing a wee bit of filming with Lenny Henry for this, because it would be absolutely nuts, wouldn't it, if you've got David Tennant in costume, ready to rock and roll to do something for Red Nose Day, and all it turns out was he took some pictures in the lobby in front of some posters. That would be a real waste of his time. So I would say, we'll get something, dude, which would be cool.
I think and hope you're right. I wouldn't be at all surprised if, like, with was it Children in Need, where they had the TARDIS and Millie Gibson came out for the companion announcement. I wouldn't be at all surprised if, like, the TARDIS is on the the Red Nose stage and Tennant bursts out of it, and hopefully we get a clip. That would be fantastic. We'd love it. Yeah. So when is it? No, Friday the 17th.
Next Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I should definitely be tuning in for that.
Yeah, it'll be cool. Yes, I keep saying cool a lot today. It will be cool. Yes,
it's going to be cool.
Cool. Yeah. Rightio. Let's crack on with our review, dude. What have we got this week?
Yeah, so we're diving into the Fourth Doctor era with a story called Underworld.
We call it the tree.
The tree of life. The wasteland, the gift of immortality on the tree of life guarded by the dragon.
The Oracle?
Yes.
Oh, that's just a myth, a story.
Myths often have a grain of truth in them if you know where to look.
What was it? Time ships of the gods.
Yes, I'm a Time Lord.
The gods use us for their sport. We should have wiped them out when we had the chance.
The quest is the quest. B-70 was carrying something much more important, at least to us.
Stop!
The future of the Minyan race.
Cool little trailer. Oh, I said cool again. That's a cool little trailer, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, bud. Underworld. Now, there's a little bit of a reset needed in my mind for this one, because I will be honest with you, I've never seen this one before.
You've never seen it? God,
no,
what a treat for you.
Yeah, I think up to this point, I think there's only 2 classic stories that I've never seen. This was one of them. So in the past, you have said to me, whenever we've put Underworld on the schedule, and it's been on there twice before, this is funny, listener, the first time Adam said, I'm not doing it. There was one time where he was like, I just can't do it, mate. I can't do that story. I think we'd come off the back of another story that wasn't well reviewed, and Adam was like, I can't do it. And then the second time it was on there, it just got moved anyway for a different reason. But
even this time I tried to get you to change it. I was like, we've just done the web planet. Surely we can't do Underworld after that. But anyway, yeah, we need to get it out of the way.
Yes. Yeah, he did say that. So in my mind, I had to do a little bit of a reset. I had to just have a little word with myself and just say, look, Adam clearly isn't a fan of this one. It seems like nobody is a fan of this one, but you need to get that out of your head, go into it fresh, and try and ignore the people's views on this story. So we'll see if that came to fruition and helped me at all. So before we get on to the deets on what you think, dude, let's do the old info. So it was first released, a 4-parter. The first part went out on the 7th of January 1978 and finished up on the 28th of January. So the whole of January was Doctor Who. It was written by Bob Baker and Dave Martin, directed by Norman Stewart, overseen by Anthony Reid. It stars Tom Baker, Louise Jameson, John Leeson as the voice of K9, and about a dozen supporting cast members. And the synopsis is: on the edge of the universe, the Doctor, Leela, and K9 encounter a minion ship on an epic quest to find their race banks, but their people have encountered the Time Lords before. That's it. End of synopsis.
That's it.
Dude, what did you think to Underworld?
I had no idea you'd never seen this. That's taken me aback. That has. So you have to go into it with a fresh mind. Quite interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Knowing that, to be honest, wow, first time watching it myself. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched this many times because I'm not really a fan of it. But in a weird way, I was looking forward to revisiting it to see, if it's as bad as I remembered. And especially after reviewing the Web Planet last week, which was very hard to get through. This was another one that I found hard to get through, but there was a glimmer of hope. I mean, I watched the first episode and thought, well, actually, that was all right. That wasn't too bad. Part 1, kind of standard Doctor Who. They land on a spaceship. The set looks fairly all right. Not as bad as I remember. The cast aren't as flat as I thought. Yeah, maybe it's not going to be too bad. And then pretty much from episode 2 onwards, I think it just deteriorates, and you can just tell that the episodes are really underrunning in their time. That they're really trying to pad them out as much as possible. We get some shots repeated. They use the same shot over and over again to try and get the episodes up to 25 minutes, and they still don't succeed. I think one of the episodes is 22 minutes long, including the credits, I think. Yeah. So you can tell it's struggling. There isn't enough story to sustain 4 parts. There isn't enough dialogue. I mean, I think sometimes they had to improvise to, some of the scenes which had no script written for them. They were just written as descriptive scenes, and they were like, these scenes are really flat. We need to add something here. I know this because I watched the documentary on it afterwards, so I could tell that there was problems in the production. And also, obviously, it's well known for its bad CSO. It relies heavily on the fact that they had completely run out of money by the time they made the story. So the sets are very basic, although I think the spaceship one looks fairly good. I think they obviously spent the majority of the budget on that set, but they had no money for anything else. So the caves are all CSO caves. So all the actors are working against blue screen, which of course back then, it's not like today where old George Lucas remember when they made the Star Wars films, and they were just acting against, green screens for the whole films. I mean, I think that, it's become a bit more advanced since, but back then it must have been so time consuming and so frustrating for the actors to have to try and envisage what they were supposed to be looking at and working around. And it's, at the end of the day, mate, it's just dull. I just find the story really dull. As I said, after that initial first part, I quickly lose interest in it. It doesn't look good on screen. It really doesn't hold my attention. And by the end of it, I really just didn't really know what was going on. I'm like, okay, they're trying to get these what is it, race banks? I mean, what even are they? Are they, you know, what? Yeah, which is switched for bombs at the last minute, but then they managed to switch them back. It's not good. And just to finish up my initial thoughts, mate, it's one of the few stories, because obviously I love the Fourth Doctor. I often cite him as my favourite. I can never really pick a favourite, but Tom's up there as one of my favourite Doctors, and it's one of the few stories that I don't even like the Fourth Doctor in. I don't like Tom's performance. I don't like the way he's written. I don't like the fact that he's so snappy. He's mumbling most of the time. Yeah, it's very rare that there's a story that I don't like Tom Baker, and even he can't lift this one. But I don't even like Tom's performance. And I'm hesitant to be critical of Tom because I love his Doctor. But having watched the studio footage of this story, he's in we're into the era now where Tom just is not taking direction well. He's snappy off screen as well as on. Have you watched the studio footage of this, by the way, the raw studio? Because if you haven't, you got to watch it.
I did, mate, afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, when he's effing and blinding, and
Yep.
he really shouts down some poor production assistant, doesn't he? You know, when he says, Tom, could you do that walk? You kind of stumbled. He's like, I'm from Gallifrey, sir. I don't walk normally. And he really goes off on a rant. And this poor I think he's a floor assistant, or I don't know, some poor chap that's just trying to do his job is getting absolutely roasted by Tom in front of all the other actors. It's uncomfortable. He even has a go at John Leeson, doesn't he?
Yeah.
When he's talking to K9, he's like, come on, John, get it bleeping together and all this. It's like not a very nice atmosphere on set. Just, I don't like seeing Tom like that, you know. And I think it translates on screen. I just don't think he's very likable as the Doctor in this story. He's really snappy towards Leela. There's no nice chemistry between them, even though I feel like she's really trying. And yeah, so I feel like I'm going on a bit because I'm going into other stuff, but it's not a story I enjoy. I don't really have a lot of positives on this one, I'm afraid.
Yes, I read you.
Anyway, over to you, mate. First time watching this, I find that amazing. I'm really intrigued. Because obviously you will have known of its reputation, but going into it with an open mind as you can have, knowing that, what did you think?
Yeah, exactly that, mate. I'd heard rumblings of like whenever we'd spoken about Tom's Doctor down the pub or at an event or something, and somebody mentions Underworld, it's, you know, it's like somebody's just, you know, done a poop on the table, because everyone's just like, how dare you mention, you know, that word.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was aware of it, but when I watched it, dude, I thought, come on, let's have an open mind as we go into it. So I did that. I tried to not get swept up in the negative hype and all that stuff. And when I'd finished watching it, I thought they were absolutely right.
No, I thought you were going to say something else. Yeah.
It's absolutely awful, mate.
It's not good, is it?
No. And you know what? I think I was surprised that Tom was like that as well in this story, because I always imagined Tom to start being that way as we go through sort of season 17 and 18. I always, for some reason, imagined Tom in those last two seasons to be really cranky and snappy. And it's well documented in that, especially that last season. You know, you can tell those stories like Meglos and Full Circle, you know, those sorts of stories, you can just tell that his mind is a million miles away in some scenes rather than on the job sort of thing. So I didn't realise that it went back this far, because we still have to go through like all the Key to Time stuff after this and all that lot. And he's not too bad in those. He's not as, you don't get the feeling he's as grumpy and stuff. But yeah, you can absolutely tell a mile off that past that first scene, which is very cool when he comes out of the TARDIS and he's got his, you know, he's doing a bit of oil painting and he's kicking back and stuff and he's having a bit of a laugh. And Louise Jameson looks fairly relaxed at that point as well. And you think, oh, okay, this is going to be a pretty cool story. But that swiftly just gets turned off when, you know, they arrive on that other ship, imaginatively called the R1C. When they get aboard that ship, it just goes downhill really quickly, unfortunately for me. And I think most of all, there's no life to the story. Most of all, pretty much every single scene throughout every episode everybody's down in the dumps, very depressed. You know, everything's bad, everything's going to poop, and all that stuff. And there's only the only thing that made me laugh, I'll be completely honest with you, was the performance of the guy who kicks off at Captain Jackson right near the beginning. You know, the guy with the dark hair who's always up for a tear up, and he gets himself captured and tortured later on.
Herrick.
Herrick, yes. He was the only sense of enjoyment for me, but it was completely unintentional. Like when he started to lose his rag all the time, it was so funny because it felt so out of place. But it was funny. It brought a smile to my face. But everything else, dude, it was like, it would have been really well suited, the whole vibe of this story, if it was applied to like a kind of post-apocalyptic dystopian sort of Fallout world. You know, that would have been perfect. But for this story, where there's potentially a lot going on, you know, there's like the civilization that's already on, you know, the planet that's captured and offered up a sacrifice to the seer or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know, and you got that going on, and then you got these dudes that are on their ship that are seemingly using Time Lord technology because they're going through a series of regenerations every now and then to keep the ship going and stuff. And on paper, it's that classic but sad old adage, isn't it? It's like on paper it sounds really good, could be an amazing story, but on screen everyone just looks like they're just not. Who was the director on this again? It was Norman Stewart.
I didn't recognise the name. Well, I looked it up earlier and I thought, that's not a name that sounds familiar. Who was it?
Norman Stewart.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like he's created an atmosphere where, other than Louise Jameson, who's fairly chipper through some of it, you know, and she's very smiley and stuff like that. It just feels like everyone else, every other character's like, oh God, you know, doom is round the corner. You know, I'm about to be obliterated at any moment. These dudes are after me. Oh, this is all bad. I just felt depressed, mate, after I watched it. Even the ending, which is supposed to, you know, most of all endings within even classic Who is a little bit of an uplifting thing, and you feel like, oh, cool, that was a cool little ending, on to the next story sort of thing. But even after that, I was like, oh, God, I need to go and watch some cartoons or something now. Some, I don't know. But so anyway, mate, yeah, my overall thought is that it was pretty awful in more ways than one. Shall we get the elephant in the room out the way, which is the old colour separation overlay. For those of you that don't know, CSO is the old technique where things were filmed on a blue screen back in the day. There weren't so much green back then. They were filmed on a blue screen, and then depending on what part of history you're referring to, it was either done with what was it, like filters? It was like lenses and stuff. Or something like that, and then later on they started to do it digitally with computers and stuff. But it has varying results, I think is the best way to put it. I think sometimes in classic Who, when it's used sparingly, it can look quite cool, even though you can tell it's a CSO shot from you know, a billion miles away. But in a story like this, you can tell that, and I think it's a known fact that they'd blown most of the budget building the ship. And so when it came round to having enough money left over for the other sets and stuff, they were like, no good. So we're going to have to CSO this bad boy. So like the caves that they're running around in and a lot of other things. I mean, it did look okay when they're in the ship and they're looking up at the screens, you know, at the beginning when they see the vortex and the, you know, all that stuff. That's not too bad. That's okay. But when they've used it in nearly every other shot, they even used it in the, you know, the dudes that had like the 3 red eyes. Yeah. They even used it on those for some bizarre reason. So you've got this weird kind of shimmering effect going on their eyes and stuff. And there's a bit, and because it's blue screen, by the way, anything that the actors are wearing that veers even close to the colour blue, that gets wiped out as well. So there's bits where you've got the extras who are running through the caves and half their legs are missing and costumes are missing, and so dude, overkill.
Kanan's like floating in the air, isn't he? Looks like he's floating in the air because he's not on the ground. So overkill, dude, or it didn't really bother you that much? No, I mean, it doesn't look good. It just doesn't. And I think you're right. I think in this one they might have mixed it with a shot with a plate in front of the camera, because pretty sure on the behind the scenes they're like carving out the cave pictures. So, yeah, it's very basic CSO, but for the time, I suppose, it's still finding its feet or whatever, but it doesn't look good. And again, this will be down to the time pressures of how quickly they had to make it. And having watched the behind the scenes, it just must have been such a headache trying to get the actors to walk around, what they can't see. So they've put this plate in front of the camera with a painting on it, and then mix that shot with them against a blue screen. And so there's a big rock piece that they've got to walk around that they can't even see. And Tom's stomping around in front of it, and they're trying to tell him, no, you've got to walk around it. And he's going off on one. And it just must have been a nightmare, trying to get this blimmin' thing recorded. And so I'm not surprised it looks as bad as it does, to be honest. But it's, having said that, it's bad, but it's not quite as bad as my memory had it. Like, I had vision, in my mind there was you could see lots of green lines where they'd mixed the two shots, and it wasn't quite as bad as I remember, but it certainly doesn't look good. One thing that was better than I remembered, because I'm going to try really hard to put at least a couple of positives in, is the model work, actually.
Yes.
So sometimes we get some terrible spaceships in Doctor Who, and even worse ones in Blake 7, as much as I hate to say it. But they don't look too bad in this. And there was a shot of the ship when it's got like these sparks flying either side of it, when can't remember what's supposed to be happening, but I thought, actually, for 72, that isn't bad at all. That actually looks pretty good. So the model work, although nothing special, is definitely better than I remembered it. But the CSO, mate, it's... And the problem is there's so much of it, isn't there? I mean, in episode 2, when the Doctor's... I don't know even what's going on. There's like a vent with some smoke pouring out of it, and the Doctor does a really slow walk because Tom's been told to take everything slowly to pad the episode, and then he kind of just slumps onto the box or whatever. It's like, I didn't even know what was going on. It's probably one of the worst cliffhangers in Doctor Who, probably only matched by the second cliffhanger the following week where they get tipped out of a truck. I mean, I have no idea what's going on in either of those cliffhangers. And B, it just looks so bad, But again, there's so much CSO in this, it's hard to really ignore, like you said, the CSO elephant in the room, because it does stand out. It's bad. Yeah. It's just so much of it.
There is a lot of it, isn't there? And you can tell it's a byproduct of not prioritising the budget, where you needed it to go. They'd spent a load of money on other stuff, so there was literally no money left to build all the other sets that they wanted to build and stuff. So you make do, I guess. Back in the day, like we said loads of times, back in the day, watching it on very old CRT television, you probably wouldn't have been too bothered.
No, that's true.
Too much, But in modern day viewing, it's like, wow. But then you fall into the argument of, should these things, because we've had this a few times with these Blu-ray sets where they've not only have they remastered the picture quality and so on, but they've redone the visual effects and everything. You go down that road, it's like, okay, well, should you redo that so it looks good for modern audiences and modern viewing technology and stuff, or do you leave it in because it's the charm of it and all that stuff? So I think it would be a really difficult remaster, this one, because a lot of the actual on-screen content is lost through the CSO. All the fringes of things look terrible. There's a bit where the Doctor and Leela are walking down one of the tunnels, and the CSO is that bad that it's chopping off a load of Tom's hair.
Yeah.
And it's cutting off some of
that.
So that'd have to be sort of manually digitally painted back in. It'd just be a nightmare. So the old CSO, mate, it's used sparingly, it's all right, but in this one, nah, not good.
The thing is, if you get good performances, like I think I may be in my mind confusing this with a Pertwee one, and I'm trying to think, is it the Mutants maybe, where they use a bit of CGI in the same way, and it's got like fringing around all the actors? Because as I said, it definitely wasn't as bad as I remember, although it's not good. But I think if you've got good performances, you can overlook it, you can get past it. But because everyone's just kind of wandering around so flatly, and Tom's just slumping onto things, and then they see an air vent, and there is no like excitement in any of the scenes, so you can't even overlook the sort of bad CGI, because everything's just so flat, from the visuals to the performances to the music, everything. It's just, there is no excitement in any of the scenes. You know, I don't, like you said about the actors, they're not really giving anything. I think the only people that are putting any effort in this story is Louise Jameson and Alan Lake, who you said, Herrick, who seems to be the only one who actually wants to give, put something into his performance. But even he drove the director and people working on it mad by trying to be awkward all the time. I mean, no, it's not the director, but there's somebody on the making of says he just seemed to be being awkward for the sake of it. He would say, right, well, how would I know this in my scene? And they'd say, well, just say the line, Alan, just say the line. Don't worry about it. It'll make sense when we put it together. Well, how do I do this? And all, apparently it was very awkward to work with. But, on screen, at least he's giving something. I feel like, he's more interesting than the other actors in it. Very true. Yeah, at first I thought, wow, he's a theatre actor for sure. He's chewing the wood. He does a theatre deaf, doesn't he? God, that deaf definitely is like really drawn out. Well, actually, it's not a deaf because he doesn't die, but when he gets shot, I mean, he does a real proper theatre. No. Yeah. There's also that first scene, when we see the crew of the imaginatively named R1C. We see them having a conversation, and they realise that the big swirling nebula in front of their ship is of danger. They're going to get swept up if they're not careful. Yeah. And as a side note, it's very cool that K9 saves that. The Doctor plugs him in and end up coming away from it. But just before that, Captain Jackson, with a very big fetching silver coiffed hair, is like, look, you'll do as you're bloody told. And Eric's like, this is like, he's proper screaming and shouting at him. And I thought, what's the beef here with these two? Because Eric's properly shouting at him and screaming. They should have played up to that a bit more, shouldn't they? Yeah. And as he's doing that, I thought, here we go. We've got a theatre actor in the round. And then, but he just gets, as much as he starts to stick to his guns, Jackson's just like, enough. And so Eric's just like, all right then. Yeah. So you think, slap down, pulled rank on him. And then you realise later on in the story that on board this ship they have these things called pacifiers, which is hilarious as well. So he's kicking off again, as you'd expect, going nuts at someone. He just wants to kill the Doctor and Leela immediately. He's just like, no, trespassers, no good. We should kill them. And Jackson's like, well, hold on, steady. And even then he's like, no. And then the other guy up on the thing fires the pacifier, and he's like, you're all good, as you were. Go on, let's go and have a cup of tea. All lovely. Yeah. But that guy, though, what was the actor's name? Alan Lake. Alan Lake. Yeah. He was very cool for me. Yeah, you nailed it, mate. So him and Louise Jameson were the only ones to show any type of range. So they went from, even there's a couple of scenes where he's enjoying almost being tortured. When he's being shot at as well, like when he's legging across the bridge and he's being shot at, and he's got this. Just before that, he says to the boss Jackson, he's like, I've been waiting for this for so long. He's been hungry for action. So even when he's being shot and everything, he's got a little grin on his face, like, this is amazing. Even though I'm losing, this is amazing. And then when he's being tortured as well, he kind of has a little grin on his face then as well. He's like, I'll never tell you. I'm not going to tell you. So him and Louise Jameson were funny. And Louise Jameson was, she had like a little grin on her face at times. And there was a bit where, in that scene I mentioned, when she was under the influence of the pacifier and the Doctor's trying to coax out of her, like her warrior, sort of state and, her state of mind. And she gets the knife out and she's like ready for it. And he's like, oh, no, just relax. So those two, you're right. They're the only ones that showed some range. The other actors, even Tom Baker, unfortunately, they were just very, very one-sided throughout the entire story. It was all doom and gloom, in a way, understandably. But, there are so many good stories. And what makes some Tom Baker stories some of the best is when Tom Baker is having like a real, like him as the Doctor has been written to wind somebody up.
and he plays it with a big smile on his face, and he injects some humour, and there's a bit of a childlike nature to him sometimes. You know how we've said in many stories before with Tom.
Yeah.
But you don't get that in this one. Yeah, no. You don't get any of that at all. Nothing at all. So anyway, what do you think to the story? So the story is basically there's one ship looking for another ship, basically. The imaginatively titled R1C.
That's it. I couldn't think what it even was.
Is looking for the other imaginatively titled P7E. So when they were writing this, who wrote this? It was Bob, wasn't it?
Bob Baker.
Yeah, Bob Baker and Dave Martin. They thought, right, how can we come up with some names of ships that the viewer's going to remember? So when this story's done and they're talking about it at work or in the playground, they can say, oh yeah, it was on that ship, wasn't it? No. Let's just give it the most random clinical name that no one's going to remember. And I can guarantee, like we're doing now, if we didn't have this info in front of us, if we were talking about this down the pub, it'd be like that ship, that ship, or this ship. Just no clever,
no clue.
memorable names or anything. So anyway, they're looking for the other ship. That other ship happens to have turned into a planet now, which is handy. So they crash through the crust, they go into it, and they find out that these things that they're looking for, the something banks, what are they called? The
race banks, is it race banks or something like that?
Have been protected by this thing called the Oracle, which is essentially, the Doctor calls it out as just this deranged computer that's gone nuts. And you have these things called the Seers, who some people call them sky gods, I think, and the Seers. And they rule society on behalf of the Oracle. They keep order by essentially keeping all these people slaves and working. And every now and then, in order to inject a bit of fear into everybody, they sacrifice, somebody, and it doesn't mean anything. The Doctor tells us quite early on that it's just mumbo jumbo. It's just all sort of celebration and crap just to keep everybody scared, basically. And that's it. That's literally the crux of the story. So what do you think to that as a Who story? Over 4 parts, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. There's some nice little ideas in there, isn't there? I mean, Bob Baker and Dave Martin, have done a few stories for Doctor Who, and they're normally quite reliable writers, and I think they've come up with some nice little ideas. It just doesn't, A, it's not enough to fill the 4 parts, and B, it's just not executed well at all on screen. So it just falls very flat, But on paper, like you said, you'd read that and you'd think, some sort of good things, the idea of like the people being controlled and stuff. Just none of that really comes across on screen to me. And you've got those guys in those big black outfits with the big hoods and that. And I think they could have probably looked quite scary if they'd have actually been, shot better and actually realised on screen better. Like, I mean, they're quite a weird sort of sinister costume, that, and they just sort of kind of stomp around and take the hood off and then they're done, and there's nothing to them, basically. And I thought there are things like that are just kind of wasted in this story. You could have had a shot of them creeping around the corner and what's that black suit with those eyes, what's that? There's none of that. They just kind of walk onto set and that's it, but there's loads in this story like that. I think good, nice ideas that are just completely wasted and don't go anywhere and aren't interesting.
I think for me, dude, I think the as well as what you've just said, which is bang on, I think for me as well, it was there wasn't much payoff with these race banks things.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I
think there was when we were told about that throughout the story, it had a little bit of intrigue about it, because you think, okay, what's that? So again, listener, if you're not aware, if you haven't seen the story, these race banks were essentially, they were a collection of like all the biometric information and all the genetic structure, I guess, of the minion species. They were contained within these, and that was the whole reason why the imaginatively titled R1C was on its quest. So throughout the story, they say, what do they say about the quest over and over?
The quest is the quest.
The quest is the quest. That's it. Sorry,
yeah.
So that's the thing. So in the Minions' history, they were aided by the Time Lords, but then they rejected that and destroyed their own people, essentially. And so these are like supposedly the last Minions out there looking for the race bank. So presumably they can start to rebuild the Minion species, I guess. So that's the deal with the race banks. But they were left right at the end of part 4, where they actually secured the race banks, and it turns out that it was a switch anyway. So there was some duplicates made.
Just happened to be around,
yeah. Which were fission bombs, basically nuclear bombs. And at the very end, the Oracle, ironically named the Oracle, basically lets them wander off with the actual race banks. And unbeknownst to the Oracle, again, very ironically, it's the nuclear bombs that have been sat there. So they go off in the ship. And I think it's K9 that flags it up. K9's like, that's not the right thing. They're the bombs.
Oh, yeah, he does. Good old K9.
So they go and they do the switch. And the Oracle's like, well, just let them take them. They've got the bombs anyway. They're going to blow themselves up. Anyway, the ship leaves at the end, gets into orbit, and then the other one blows up. And that's all good. But it took right until the end of episode 4 for anything to happen with those race banks, and even then it was just they've been swapped and now you've got the real ones. Fantastic.
Yeah,
exactly. There was no hot potato moment. There was no one running through the caves with these things. It was just, I don't know,
that would have been so much better.
Yeah. The payoff for me for these very sought after pieces of equipment just kind of were mentioned, even though it was the main directive for these dudes to get hold of. They got sidetracked a little bit, and then you don't see anything about it until episode 4. So yeah, that was another thing for me, dude, in terms of story. Was the
who are the guys with that? You mentioned them earlier. So when they take the hoods off, and they've got these funny faces, but they've sort of got these red glowing eyes effect. So those dudes, I mean, I think they actually would have looked better without the glowing eyes for a start, because it's an unusual headpiece they're wearing, isn't it? So it looks almost dated, but dated enough to look interesting, if that makes sense. So where did those guys pop up from, and what happened to it? Do you know what I mean? Another nice idea, but goes absolutely nowhere. I think they're only in like one scene, aren't they, or 2 scenes?
They're in a couple of scenes, yeah. So they're the Seers. So they were
Seers. That's it. Yeah.
So they were descendants of the minions who had evolved, I guess, over the hundreds of thousands of years that the unimaginatively entitled R1C has been looking for them, and they report to the Oracle, but they oversee the slaves. I think they call them trogs, don't they, in the episode? The story?
Yeah, trogs.
So they the 2 that we see in this story are called Ankh and Lak, I believe.
Wow.
Were their
Didn't
names.
catch their names at the time.
And so they would look very cool, but they look like something from Sesame Street, unfortunately, because the top half of their sort of gold helmets with the eyes, they look quite menacing and bad. But unfortunately, from the eyes down, all they've got is this big button nose.
Yeah.
And the dome head shape. So unfortunately, instead of trying to come off as looking relatively, I don't know what the adjective you'd say, intimidating or grand or something, I don't know, they end up looking like Sesame Street puppets.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
But it's just another element that's just sort of thrown in there sort of late on in the story. And as I said, I didn't even realise quite what they were meant to be. I was like, well, who are these guys again? And then we don't see them, so I don't care. It's just another nice element that's just thrown, another bit of mud thrown at the screen, if you like, isn't it? Yeah,
not good. No good. What do you think to Jackson then, James Maxwell, who's the captain of the ship? Because he's the dude in charge. He's meant to be excuse the pun, steering the ship and all that, and a little bit paint by numbers with him.
I was going to say, he's not bad and he's not good. He's just, that's a good way of putting it, actually. He's just paint by numbers, isn't he? He just doesn't stand out either way.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. It's not a memorable performance. I mean, I've literally just seen this for the first time recently, as in yesterday. The first time you watched this, which must have been decades ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, dude. It must have been decades ago. I imagine that you've probably got a still shot of him in your mind, but you probably can't remember specific scenes and him delivering dialogue and stuff, I guess.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, as I said, he's just unmemorable. He's not bad. He's not bad in the part, but is just unmemorable. It's just, that's a good way, like of putting it. He's paint by numbers. It's just, yeah, it just feels like an extra more than a sort of leading captain. You know, he's just kind of there, isn't he?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it kind of, what doesn't help as well is that the limelight is stolen a little bit by Herrick, you know, that character.
Yeah.
Because he is such a cool...
he's got a bit of oomph, hasn't he?
Exactly. Yeah, because he's got a bit of gumption about him and a little bit of fire. You want to see more of him. You want to see more of that character. And he's in it quite a bit as well. So he goes off on his own, obviously, to take on the seers and the guards and everything, ends up getting captured. And then the whole torture scene and everything's cool. And then, you know, and then that ruck that he has with Jackson early on. And then, you know, so he's the sort of character that you're like, oh, cool, you know, it's, you know,
he
that
does
something
stick
cool.
in the mind.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He will, if you say this story, you kind of picture him.
Yeah,
you know, and
something
can,
cool's
like,
going to happen when he's on screen. Yeah. Whereas Jackson, it's more like, oh, we should go here and do that. Okay, yes, I agree with that. Yes, let's go here and do that. Cool. On we go. You know, it's very much we need to, this is like again, excuse the pun, it's like quest fetches that you see in video games. It's like, right, we need to go here and do that thing and come back here. Whereas Herrick's like, no, we need to go and fight and do this thing and then we'll be okay. So, yeah, upstaged a little bit by Alan Lake, Mr. Maxwell, I'm afraid.
And he does, Herrick gets to say the line at the end, which I did like, of the quest is over. And you think, oh, thank God for that, because they've said this is the quest about 100 times by this point. So when he says it's over, there is a slight sigh of relief. And it kind of, and again, unintentionally funny, isn't it? The way he kind of staggers out and the quest is over. He looks absolutely shattered, as if like he's had enough now.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, just like the viewer.
Like the viewer. Yeah.
Had enough now. Yeah.
What was the dude that was shouting out orders to the guards to track down some of the trogs and the team and stuff? He wore the same black suit as the guards.
Is he the guy who gets gassed as well? Because there's a scene where there's gas everywhere, and he suddenly goes, "Oh no, gas!" And I'm like, how did you not notice she was surrounded by gas? It's again just very badly filmed. But I don't know if that's the guy you mean.
I can't remember the guy's name.
He's watching a screen a lot of the time. Is that the one you mean?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
him. Yeah.
I can't remember his name though.
No, I don't know what he's called.
No, he was okay. What about
Tala? Because she gets she's quite old in one scene. Reminds me of something from Star Trek. Actually, she's got this old makeup on to make her look like an old woman, and she goes in as a. I can't remember what happens. What does she do? She comes back and she's all young again.
Yeah, she doesn't. Nothing much.
Puts on a bit of oil of Ulay.
Oil of Ulay, and a bit of makeup. She I mean that was pretty cool. When she just, it was incredibly funny. Unfortunately, where her head just sort of collapses down and falls onto one of the buttons and stuff.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool the way that they did that. It was like a visual representation for the viewer that, you know, we're about to go through a regeneration. Basically, this is like the Time Lords have taught us how to do this because they've got endless regenerations. So that's kind of the point of the story as well, is that time's running out for them. Ironically, not for themselves because they can regenerate, but their ship is starting to, it's seen better days, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. So Imogen Bickford-Smith played Tara.
Great name, isn't it?
Very cool. Imogen, yeah. And she was okay, but unfortunately, like a lot of female characters in this era of Who, she kind of gets sidelined.
Totally.
A little bit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely lost in it, which is a shame. I feel like there was a nice performance waiting to happen there, because I do like the little scene she's in, and I think that's quite a nice idea of the whole regeneration thing. And again, it's just another idea thrown at the screen and forgotten about after episode 1, isn't it, pretty much?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like she was totally underused, and yeah, I just would have liked to have seen her got more to do, and B, to have a bit more screen time, but totally lost, sadly. Same,
dude. Yeah. There was a teeny weeny rumour as well that she was going to replace Louise Jameson as the next companion for Tom. Okay. Yeah, but nothing ever came with it. I don't know if that is just a rumour or that was an attempt to happen, and it just didn't work out. I'm not sure.
I
but
didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so that was Tala. Anyone else to pick up on? So, old John Leeson then was very cool as K9, right? So,
Yeah.
In some stories, there's some very cool banter between the Doctor and K9. The only time I saw this was at the beginning when K9's trying to tell the Doctor about, I think it was the nebula that was coming close to the TARDIS. And the Doctor's like, shut up. He's talking and he's like, shut up. So that was kind of cool. They do that very well. But other than that, I think it was more Leela that was into K9 rather than the Doctor in this one. I could be wrong. I can't remember. But am I getting that wrong? There wasn't much
No, I think
interaction.
that's probably right, because she gives him the nice little kiss on the tin nose at the end, didn't she?
Yeah, there was a bit where the Doctor clamps the, back in the day when your car didn't start, you had jump leads to start.
Oh yeah,
your car.
he puts them on his ears, doesn't he? Yeah.
He gets the jump leads out, puts on K9's ears, and well, I'm showing my age there. Jump leads, and they managed to get the ship out of the course of the nebula and all that stuff. And I think he does mention something like, I think he says "good boy" or something, and Jackson says, "What's that?" And the Doctor tells him what K9 is. But other than that, K9's kind of in the background a little bit. They sort of wheel him out when something needs to happen. But yeah, maybe that's because of the K9 model, perhaps. It wasn't always reliable, was it?
Well, he's certainly very noisy, isn't he? When, the motor in that thing is very loud when he's going around. But John Leeson's, he's pretty reliable, isn't he? In terms of his performance, he is just K9. I always think it's very jarring when he leaves for that one season and we get someone else, because I don't know, John Leeson's voice just is K9, I think.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, because in some stories you have K9 in it a bit more. He's just sort of following behind. And there's a few shots, like pick-up shots, where they see K9 going down some... I suppose they couldn't, I guess, because of the old CSO.
Yeah.
It would have been tricky with that, I guess, yeah. I read you. I've got no other characters to pick up on.
No.
Other than, before we get on to the scores and stuff, what did you think because they did build one set, didn't they? It was for the Oracle set, where they had the sword floating around.
Oh, yeah.
And all this stuff. That looked like a bloody mess, mate. It was like they just cobbled together a bunch of tinfoil and some old plastic chrome-looking bits and tried to put pink lights around it and stuff. Just a bit of a mess, that dude.
It was a mess. I mean, they've just redressed the original set or something. I don't know. It doesn't look very good. Again, well, nothing in this really looks good, to be honest. A push, you could say the initial spaceship set for 70s Who is fairly good, but that's it. Yeah, the other sets look really ropey,
Ropey, mate, is
ropey.
the word. Okay, and then old Dudders. They should have saved the budget, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's just standard stuff. There's nothing I would say is bad or anything, but Dudley's music's just very standard in this, I think there was a bit where you almost heard like the first few notes of the Blake 7 theme. I didn't. I only picked it out because it mentions it in the production notes, and I rewound it, and thought, oh yeah, you hear the dun, dun, dun. I thought, oh, so because I think this was going out same time as Blake 7. Is Blake 7 on now?
Oh, actually, yeah, you're a good point. Yeah, that went.
Is this about the same time as Blake 7?
Because he worked on both.
Yeah,
oh
he? Yeah. He did. Dudley does pretty much all the music in Blake 7, apart from, I think, 2 episodes where Dougie Camfield was directing, and for some reason Dougie never used Douglas. I don't know what was going on there. But yeah, he does all the music for Blake 7, and I think you do catch a glimmer of the theme in one of the things. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, the music was just standard Dudley. Nice, but
yeah, that was on the
amazing.
That was on the DVD. About
it's on the
Simpson.
DVD production notes. Yeah,
the production notes. Yeah, he said that because this went out, I think, 2 or 3 days after Blake 7 debuted.
Yeah,
and yeah, Dudley Simpson had said that because he was working on both shows, he'd sneaked a little audio reference of Blake theme's music into this score.
Cheeky Dudley,
cheeky little one there.
Is this also around the same time that Star Wars came out, because I think, is this the one where they went to the cinema and saw Star Wars and then came back feeling really depressed that this was about to go out at the same time, and just the comparison of like what Star Wars was doing?
No,
and,
so this was it might have been a story before this one. This was a year
Oh.
after Star Wars had come out.
Oh yeah, so certainly seven, yeah.
But yeah, there is, I think that happened a lot though with anybody that was making science fiction.
Yeah.
Any time after May 1977, just go home and just think again.
Forget about it.
Forget about it and think again, yeah.
Cancel it.
Yeah. Okie dokie. I think I've got everything out of my system on this one, dude. Have you got anything else to mention?
No, I just wanted to talk to you about Tom, really, as the Fourth Doctor, because normally Tom can lift a story, can't he? And he doesn't lift this one. If anything, he annoys me. I really don't like the Fourth Doctor in this. I've got to get it off my chest because he's one of my favourite Doctors. But I don't know if I'm blurring the lines between Tom and the Fourth Doctor, because I think sometimes they just are the same person. But he's really snappy towards Leela in it. He's really snappy to all the other characters in it. He comes across as arrogant. He stomps around. A lot of the time, Tom's mumbling. I can't even hear what he's saying. It's very rare that I can't think of many Fourth Doctor stories where I don't like the Fourth Doctor in it, and I don't like for example, if someone said to me, if I'd never seen a Fourth Doctor story, someone said, "Oh, he's the best Doctor. He is the Doctor," which I would consider to be true. Pretty much, he is great. If someone said to me, "You never seen Tom Baker? You got to watch this." If this is my first story with the Fourth Doctor, I would think he was the worst, because he's just unpleasant. You know, it's just arrogant and snappy, and I don't know if it's because I've also watched the behind the scenes stuff where I see Tom being very difficult, and this is during the Graham Williams era where I think the reins were off a little bit. I think with Philip Hinchcliffe there was a lot of respect between him and Tom, and Philip could sort of rein Tom in. But in this, Graham Williams just doesn't have any control over Tom. You've got Tom telling him how to direct scenes. You've got him having a go at people, telling him, "I know how to play the Doctor," and he's got an arrogance to him that is beginning to creep in, and it's not very nice to see. I mean, you can see the ab-libbing as well. You know, that's another thing that I think previously they might have reined in a little bit. Like, I think Philip Hinchcliffe would have indulged Tom if Tom had an idea, and if he thought it was good, he would go for it, or if he didn't, he could say to Tom, "No, we're not doing that, Tom. So just do it as it's scripted," and Tom would do it. At this stage, watching the behind the scenes, you see Tom, he's just like throwing in lines like that line where he says, "Whatever blows can be sucked." I mean, what the hell? You know, that the director should have said, "No, Tom, I don't think we'll put that line in," because that's a Tom Baker ad-lib apparently, and turning and talking directly to the camera as well. You know, when the directors told him, No, don't break the fourth wall, but he does it anyway. You know, I can see these sort of little things creeping in with Tom because he's been there so long. I think that perhaps he thought he knew better. You know, I know how to do this now, and I just find it disheartening to watch. I think as a Fourth Doctor fan, I don't like seeing this side of the Fourth Doctor, and I don't like seeing that side of Tom Baker. You know, it's something that sort of crept in later in his era, isn't it? And I think it just gets worse from this point onwards. In terms of the behind the scenes, not his performance. I think there are stories after this where he's so much better, but there's no fun or lightness, or there's no lovely moments between him and Leela. You know, there's no charming moments. He just snaps at her all the time. Everything she says, he puts her down. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's not just down to the script; it's the way Tom delivers the lines. You know, he's very snappy in it, and I just don't like it. And I think most stories could be saved by Tom, but not this one.
I read you on that, dude. Yeah. And if you've seen many Tom Baker stories before, you kind of get you pick up quite quickly on when Tom's like that as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a long time to realise that, oh, okay, Tom, you're not into this one very much, are you? It's usually a case of if he didn't care for the director very much, like if he wasn't impressed with the director or somebody, or just wasn't into the script, he would absolutely let you know it. But the thing is with Tom is that I could be wrong here, but I don't think there are many times where he would outright say, "I think this is crap." He would more so just make life difficult by not taking direction, being very bullish, and quite disrespectful at times to either the producer or the director and so on, which is a real shame, because mostly for the other actors, I think, because those guys... But depending on how you viewed it, there are some classic stories where we've reviewed the supporting cast members as, this is just a paycheck, this is just another acting job, and you're not into it. But there must have been quite a few actors who were really excited to get to work on Doctor Who. You know, they're either fans, or they just wanted to work in sci-fi, or they like Tom as the Doctor, or whatever it might be. And then they get on set and they just get absolutely torn to shreds by Tom and the atmosphere and stuff. So it's a real shame, and unfortunately it happens still today. Do you remember there was a few years ago when there was that sound clip that leaked of Christian Bale on set of the Terminator film that he did?
No, I don't think so.
Google it, mate. It's absolutely hilarious. But there was basically a lighting guy or somebody who was doing something in the background while Christian Bale was trying to film this scene, got distracted by this guy, and then spent the next 15 minutes absolutely tearing him another one in front of everybody. And you can hear the director saying, look, just calm down, it'll be fine. It's like, don't tell me to calm down. Anyway, it went completely off on one. So that still happens today. But... you wouldn't know it by watching the film. Whereas when you're watching Tom, you know it. You know that something's not right.
I feel like.
Yeah. So does that detract from the overall feeling of the story? Yes, it does, unfortunately, with this type of, like you were saying, he comes across as a bit arrogant and a little bit just not enjoyable to watch, in a nutshell. Most of the time, anyway.
Which is unusual, isn't it? Normally the Fourth Doctor is very fun to watch. Even in a boring episode, Tom is normally the only good thing in it sometimes. You think, oh, well, at least Tom's like on the ball. I'm thinking about when you were talking about people being fans of his and coming in to work with him, I just can't help but think of poor old Matthew Waterhouse when he was like such a fan, wasn't he?
He was.
And then he gets cast as a companion and he's so excited to work with Tom. And Tom just, was at the peak of his unhappy sort of stage, I think. Yeah.
Bless Matthew.
Poor old Matthew.
Just got
it was him and Lala,
destroyed.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, got put in between him and Lala. Blimey. Yeah.
Jesus. Anyway, Tom. Anyway, he's chilled out nowadays, I guess. Whenever anybody
I love Tom. I wouldn't want anyone to think I'm having a go at Tom. I love him. And we all have days. I was saying to you before we recorded, we all have days when we lose our rags. I mean, I was in a foul mood before getting to the BFI because of trains cancellations and God knows what. We all have days where we let off steam and look back and think, oh, everyone around me was probably like, walk away. But it just comes across a bit in the performance, I think, in this one. Yeah.
I don't know if I told you the story before. I think I might have done many, many moons ago, years ago on the podcast. But a boss of mine, a company that I used to work for, I think his best friend or his wife's best friend used to live round the corner from Tom Baker. And I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. Did they ever go and have tea or bump into him? And his reaction was absolutely not, because he was such a miserable old beep that they never bothered. I think they tried to so this is going back a few years though. Like I said, I think nowadays Tom is a little bit he just got that golden, lovely old guy charm about him now. You can even imagine him being like this. You know? So, it's just a shame, I think, overall. We sound like parents here. We're not miffed about this. We're just disappointed.
Yeah, I guess we're not, and I don't want people to think we're painting Tom a bad picture, because I've met him many times and he is incredible to me. And like you said, he's definitely mellowed in his old age. And I think he just went through a period, didn't he, where he was drinking heavily. And this is well documented. It's not like we're not having a go at Tom. We love Tom, but he definitely went through a period of his life where he wasn't that happy, I think, and was drinking a lot and was quite irascible. Is that the right word?
Irascible? We'll go with that one.
Yeah. And he's definitely mellowed and in his old age, like we all do. We'd like
hopefully,
to think. Yeah.
Okie dokie then. We love you, Tom. We know you listen. We do.
Not anymore, he doesn't.
Not now, he doesn't. No. So let's get to some scores on this one, Bud. I think it's you to go first.
Yeah, okay. I'll go first. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10.
Whoa.
I think this could be one of my lowest scored episodes.
Okay.
Just because there's hardly anything positive I can say about it. So
I thought the that you gave the Web Planet was pretty low.
I probably would watch the Web Planet over this.
Well, next
Because at
week,
least
this
you've got
weekend,
some
mate.
interaction between the Doctor and the companions and stuff. There's nothing in this.
Yeah, I'll read you. Okay, I am going to give this a 2.
Oh, God. A number 2.
A number
Literally
2.
is the poo on the table.
Yeah, mate, I think it pains me to say it, but there is absolutely nothing to enjoy in this story other than the odd little scene, the odd little moment and scene between Herrick and Jackson, or Herrick and the guards and stuff like that. And Leela. I think Louise Jameson had a good one in this.
She does do well with what she's given. Yeah.
Yes. So I think for those 2 performances, they get a point each. The rest of it, mate, not even Tom. And it does pain me to say that. It's just nothing. There's nothing. I didn't come away with just thinking, oh, there were some good bits in that, but whatever. I just finished the 4 parts and thought, crikey Moses. Now I get why when it's mentioned, people just frown and want to change the subject. So anyway, a 3 from him and a 2 from me. Let's
finally did it. It's been bouncing around on the schedule for years. We finally did it. The quest is over.
Is over. Thankfully. Right, let's see. Let's balance this out a little bit, perhaps, shall we, with our listeners' thoughts. Over on Twitter, Sam Ash says, too long, drawn out, one of the worst classic stories of all time.
Yeah, agree.
Not off to a good start, are we? Would prefer to get a lobotomy than sit through this one again. And Sam gives us a 2 as well. 2 out of 10. Owen, Doctor Who Home, says a more interesting story would have excused the poor CSO, but sadly this can't be said for Underworld. It's a remarkable bit of innovation and ambition when trying to save money, but when Star Wars is being Star Wars at this time, Underworld can't compete. It's all right, 6 out of 10.
6, generous.
Okay. Chippy T, don't remember this being as terrible as all reports suggest. The most damning thing I can say is that you get to the end and are mired in indifference to it. Unusual to have a 4th Doctor episode you can't say that to. A 4 from me. Yes. Tom, Titan Sci-Fi, short and sweet, just says, no, just no, 1 out of 10. Oh, and he also included a cool little gif of David Tennant's Doctor just with his feet up, shaking his head.
Oh, doing the shaky head.
No.
Love it.
Will Sanger, a real slog from beginning to end. Whilst the backstory with the Time Lords is somewhat interesting, the bad CSO lets it down. The story has nothing to work with and there is no plot. It quickly becomes boring, simply running around the same horrible-looking caves. Not even a score from Will. Oh, dear. Our writer, Jordan Shortman, says, abysmal.
Oh, Jordan.
Absolutely abysmal. Why this didn't just get filmed in caves, I don't know. Everyone looks bored, but the only person who seems to be trying is Louise Jameson, who is still fantastic as Leela. Yeah. From dodgy CGI to men in dodgy black leather masks, this isn't Who's finest hour. No score.
Yeah.
Tom Turlow, it's a long time since I've seen it, so bear with me. Obviously, it's not good. The CSO is terrible and it looks cheap, but I think the story is quite interesting and some of the non-CSO sets are quite good. A generally mediocre story spoiled by production issues. A 6 out of 10.
6, okay.
Not too bad. Edward Gillooly, a dull story not helped by overuse of CSO. A 4 out of 10. And lastly on Twitter, Paul Jobbo says, was dreading this, but not as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
The good. Great concept for the story with the mythology, parallel and prior Time Lord involvement. The bad. CSO is just awful, though it means K9 can trundle along happily. Dodgy science and a wealth of cliches. Herrick shouts too much and the quest is over when he finds a couple of brass candlesticks and everyone folds their arms. Paul gives it 4 plot holes out of 10. Oh dear. Thank you very much, Twitter peeps. Over on Facebook, Jeff Waddle says, there's very little plot and what we get on TV is so boring that the so-called plot of being a parody of Greek mythos goes right over my head. Instead, it looks more like we've walked into a sex party of fetish-wearing inhabitants. And while that wouldn't be suitable for tea time TV, neither is this garbage. One of the lowest points of Tom's era, maybe even the worst.
Wow.
No score from Jeff. Oh dear. James Walsh, oh Underworld, what did we did so wrong to have you in our world? Everything is bad. The script, the effects and the acting, even our regulars look bored. Sometimes a bad story can be saved by a fan alien, but no. 4 episodes of tedium, 0 out of 10.
Zero. God, have we ever had a 0 before?
I don't think so. Well, very rarely, yeah, the old 0. Andrew Stewart says, appalling. This story is a real slog from start to end. Tom and Louise are trying their best, however, it's just not working. The CSO is terrible, which is a shame because it blew the budget for the rest of the series. And when you have CSO looking better in the Pertwee days, when it has brand new, then there's a problem. Also, it commits the biggest sin. It's boring. The worst Doctor Who story of all time. It's quite a long review from Andrew, but goes on to give it not too bad score, actually. Gives it a 5 out of 10.
A 5? Gosh. Okay.
Yes. Bob Clark, the only thing more memorable about this episode, the quest is the quest. LOL. Simon Lockwood, even as a 7-year-old at the time, I recognised the lameness of the chroma key. Sorry, BBC. Colour separation overlay. Cave scenes. Watching it now, I still struggle to remember what just happened. It has its subtle references. P7E equals the Persephone. But this is one story where we used to attempt to drag out in college. Hold on a second, let me get this right. It has its subtle references, but this one story we used to attempt to drag out in college back in the day if we wanted a crap Doctor Who night with some imbibement, and even then we couldn't get through it just for the fun of it. Oh, right, okay. So back in the day, we used to say if you wanted a crap Doctor Who night, you dragged out Underworld. Gotcha. Yes. Horns of Nymon is much better for that and was probably considered the worst episode ever made for its era. Tom and Louise seems to be going through the motions. This is just almost nothing and hasn't aged well. 1 out of 10. Oh. Do you prefer the Horns of Nymon to this?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
We have to ask the important question, though, dude.
It does have at least, you go and ask it.
How many Nymons have you seen today? 3.
Yeah, definitely. At least it's got some fun moments, Nymon.
You little hussy.
You meddlesome hussy.
Meddlesome hussy. Oh, mate, I'm going to watch that this weekend. Yeah. Right, Douglas, let's get through this. Douglas Stanford Grandy, love that name, says, if there was to be a list of the absolute worst classic Doctor Who eps, Underworld definitely makes the top 3. The other 2 being The Web Planet and Ghostlight. Oof.
Ghostlight, eh?
When it used to air on my local PBS station, I would always give it a pass and not bother watch it. Wow. To watch it many, many years later, I would buy it on DVD because I'm a completist. Adam knows exactly what you mean.
I know all about that.
I thought/hoped that maybe now I'm mature, I will appreciate this story more. However, it was not to be. Definitely the worst of the 4th Doctor's era. Charlie Turner says, embarrassing, pathetic, and all things negative pretty much.
Right.
Now I understand what the classic series has green screen used in certain stories, but my God, this is the definition of how not to use it to your advantage. He goes on to give it a 2 out of 10.
A 2, right.
And lastly, Kevin Mullen. Cool dude, Kev. Mm-hmm. Good designer. Says, truly terrible. Fans often say Tom Baker's run was a golden age, but there was a lot of awful episodes, with this possibly being the very worst. It makes the mistake of being boring, which is unforgivable. And another 0 out of 10. Ooh.
0? Blimey.
Crikey Moses.
Yeah.
All right, dude, what's the average for this then? It's got to be a bloody 2 or a 3.
2, I think.
Oh.
2 or 3, yeah.
Oh, dear. Right.
Not good.
The upside, though, is that we've done it. We've watched it and done it, so we can now stop bouncing it around, putting it back on the schedule. It's all good. Right, thank you very much, people of Twitter and of Facebook, for your comments and reviews. Much, much appreciated, as always. Thank you very much. So next week, dude, what have we got for review then?
Well, after the Web Planet and Underworld, what we really need now is a belter of a story to get us back in the swing of things. Unfortunately, we're going to be doing Colony in Space next week. Colony in Space, 3rd Doctor.
What we need, Who fans, is an absolute banger.
We'll have no listeners left by the end of the month.
So, let's just call March the bottom of the barrel month.
Scraping the barrel month.
For some quality classic Who. Oh, God. I'm not even going to tell you what's at week 4 after Colony in Space. So, tune in next week.
What is it? Even I don't know what's it week 4.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
Dear.
Yep. March is write-off month, but we're going to get through it. It's all good. So, on that chipper note, let's end there for episode 379.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much. Thank you, honestly, so much for listening to this week's episode of The Big Blue Box. That was 379, where we reviewed the classic Fourth Doctor story, Underworld. Next week, as Adam said, we're going to be reviewing another banger, which is the Third Doctor story, Colony in Space. So keep your eyes peeled for the Twitter and Facebook and that stuff, as we're asking for your thoughts and your scores out of 10, etc. as always. And thank you so much. It was a slog to watch it, but then another slog to get in contact with your thoughts and stuff. So thank you very much for doing that. In the meantime, make sure you are following or subscribing to this podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, just do a search for the Big Blue Box podcast. You'll find us on there, or head over to the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.uk. You can listen for free on the website there as well. Plus, you can link off to all the socials. There's links there. We're on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Get involved over there. We chat Doctor Who throughout the week, and while you're on the website, make sure you check out the reviews and the articles from our amazing writing team. We also have a very cool free Discord server. There's a link on the website. Hop in there and chat lots of other cool Doctor Who with some very, very cool Doctor Who fans. Also, don't forget to remember to check out Adam's channel over on YouTube. It is, of course, The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, yeah, go check out my YouTube channel, also on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. It's still going. Twitter.
Even the TikTok's still going.
Oh, wow,
which is
no,
nuts.
not really. It's there, but it's not.
Go and check out Adam's stuff.
It's already going.
It's all, yeah. Go and check out Adam's stuff. Loads of very cool stuff over there. Until next week, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,